Hi everyone. I'll be talking to you about the Nigerian National Broadband Plan 2020 to 2025 and what it means for businesses. My name is Kendall Ananyi. I'm the founder and CEO of TZD. I started my career at PricewaterhouseCoopers and worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers in Nigeria and Canada. I also worked in Microsoft and ExxonMobil. At ExxonMobil, I managed large oil and gas projects. And while at Microsoft, I built software for Microsoft. I'm currently the CEO of TZD. TZD is the #1 provider of unlimited internet in Nigeria. Um, we have three main properties, which is Wi-Fi Call, which is our voice over IP service, Wi-Fi.com.ng, which is our unlimited internet service in Nigeria, and GhanaWiFi.com, which is our same unlimited internet service in Ghana. So the agenda for my talk today will be, I'll talk about the accomplishments of the previous Nigerian National Broadband Plan 2013 to 2018, describe what the current broadband plan is, talk about the priority initiatives, and then have a little bit of discussion on what it means for businesses. So the old plan, the 2013 to 2018 plan, was to cover a 5-year period, which ended in 2018. The objective was to achieve a 5-fold increase in broadband penetration from the 6% baseline that they had in 2012 and download speeds of 1.5 Mbps. So currently what was achieved was we got to a broadband penetration of 37.8%, and majority of that was mobile broadband connections, which basically almost 99.8% of it. And then we have very little fixed broadband connection, which is really what is more desirable for broadband connection. And that's where some of the focus will be in the new Nigerian National Broadband Plan. And there are various, so when you talk about broadband, there are various, it's split into 3 major categories: the first mile, the middle mile, and the last mile. First mile has to do with the original connections where the internet comes into the country. So it might be via submarine cables or satellite. In Nigeria, we have 6 submarine cables with a 40 terabits of capacity, which is a lot of capacity. So in that space, in the first mile, current status today, a lot of capacity is available. And also there are a ton of satellite operators currently in operation in Nigeria. The middle mile, not as great. There's about 54,000 kilometers of fiber, and there's still a large amount of traffic being transported using a microwave, which is a legacy network. In some cases, yes, it provides backup to the fiber, but in some cases, it's the primary path to get internet from the first mile into the last mile, which is where the operators that you're more familiar with operating, which is like TZD or any of the MNOs, right? Currently, we have about 75% 3G coverage and 37% 4G coverage, while unique mobile penetration starts at 42%. Now, what is the Nigerian National Broadband Plan? Really, it's designed to deliver data speeds of 25 Mbps in the urban areas and 10 Mbps in the rural areas, with effective coverage of at least 90% by 2025. So the goal is to actually go from about 3 megs today to go to about, for urban, to about 25 megs in 2025. And not just the speed, there's also a target for the price points that we want to meet. We want to be able to go from about 1,000 naira per gig to 390 naira per gigabyte of data, and it should be about no more than 1% of minimum wage. So less than 3 hours of work in a 1-month period, you should be able to afford 1 gig of data. Number of targets, timelines, and milestones were set. They used the baseline of where we are in 2020. They set a milestone around the halfway point, which is the 2023 milestone, and then 2025 target. So for coverage, we want to go from 30%, be at about 70% at the halfway mark, and then reach a target of 90% of 4G coverage. And then in terms of speed, so I told you there's about 3 Mbps. We want to get to 25 and 10 in 5 years. Then in terms of penetration, we want to go from 30%, grow about 40% to 50% of eligible individuals, and provision for physical challenged people, and then end up at about the 70% mark in 2025 for fiber reach for schools, health facilities, and local governments. We want to be able to go from basically nominal coverage to about 70% for tertiary, 30% for secondary school, and 15% for primary, and end up at about 100% for all tertiary institutions to have fiber coverage, and then 50% for secondary schools and 25% for primary schools. For health facilities, we want to go from nominal to about 80% of all general and major hospitals in every local government area and federal medical centers, and then to get to about 80% of primary health centers in every local government area. For the towers, fiber to the towers, and we're starting at about 10%. We want to get to about where our towers are 60% covered. Even by the halfway, there's significant progress we want to have made by the 2023 milestones for fiber to the towers to be at about 40%. Then for fiber infrastructure itself, which is the middle mile, we want to go from 40,000 kilometers and triple that to 120,000 kilometers non-overlapping fiber coverage. And then affordability sits around 1,000 naira a gig. We want to be able to get to where it's 390, like I said. And even at the 2023 milestone, we want to be able to have dropped the price by 30% to 700 naira per gig. Then for cost of devices, because obviously broadband without devices is useless. You can't hit any of your literacy goals if you don't have that. We want to be able to have at least one local assembled device by the 2023 milestone with a target price of less than $50. And then we want to end in 2025 with about 3 locally assembled smart devices, and to have basically half the price to about $25 in 2025. Then the digital literacy level, we want to go from 62% adult literacy to about 60% digital literacy. Huge goals there. And same with gender equality, we want to reduce the gender gap from 15% to increase it to about 100% in women in social security development programs that have digital access, right? And then for the underserved rural communities, we want to be able to get to 100% community access or school access in all areas. And the pillars of the plan. So the way the plan is built, we have 4 pillars on which we want to, the recommendations around the infrastructure, policy, demand drivers, and funding and incentives. So on the infrastructure side, we're talking about critical national infrastructure, fiber coverage, base station satellites. And on the policies, we're talking about things like right-of-way, regulations, and spectrum. And then obviously the markets, is all the huge investment you're going to put in the infrastructure side to make up the deficit in infrastructure. You're going to have a market that, and you want it to be affordable. We also want to have a greater focus on local content, and then make the devices cheaper, and then grow overall digital literacy. And then even the trust factor. A lot of talk here in the US about national security and telecoms. Right, part of this broadband plan already has recommendations around that. And then on the funding and incentive side, just create, basically to be able to attract additional investment via subsidies, harmonization of tariffs, and then provide additional incentives. So I'm going to also talk about I'm going to focus the discussion, the recommendations on the priority initiatives, because that's what really impacts the business for operators and service provider. So for the infrastructure, so basically identify, create a database for telecom assets and tag them as critical national infrastructure. And they're going to issue an executive order to declare it and full implementation of the plan. They're also going to establish a coordinating body for fiber builds to provide open access, prevent overlap, there's just big ones, and then facilitate right-of-way issuance at statutory rates. This is a big deal for businesses, because part of the problem will be you can estimate the cost of any fiber delivery, fiber you want to implement. There's also the issue around permitting and the rates at which those things cost. And also too, apart from just having, so I talked about the submarine cable, we also want the option of satellites to actually leverage existing Nigerian communication satellites infrastructure to serve underserved and rural areas. Then we want to implement uniform right-of-way for fiber builds at the rate of 144 naira per meter, and ensure open access accounting separation, so that you don't have a case where wholesale services are being supported by retail services, and thereby they're not having the right costing around there. Then for the policies, obviously, they're putting a lot of capex. The policies also have to ensure that you can get a return on investment on all the money you spend on the infrastructure side. So everything from base station site acquisition, we're going to work with the state so that you have like a one-stop shop so they can get approvals very quickly. You don't have all the different tiers of government you have to deal with. You want to harmonize the fees so that you're paying to a single point of contact for when you're acquiring sites for your base station. And then for spectrum, we want to ensure efficient use of spectrum. So there's a case of people sitting down on spectrum. They're going to discourage that significantly. It's use it or lose it policy. And also it's going to be open and transparent, things around spectrum trading. And then there's a lot of work is going to open up the band to broadcasting band so that you can implement TV white spaces and use it to deploy broadband. And on the funding and demand driver side, affordability is the goal there. So we're going to incentivize low-cost smartphone devices, promote local assembly, and then manufacturing of telecom and network and end devices there. There's even talk around helping improve even when you're importing some of the devices and streamline the process so that you can get them into the countries really fast. And then we're going to coordinate government spending on schemes and programs to ensure access in public institutions like school, hospitals, and ministry and departments and agencies. And then for just the general business, so when you're not, I talked about that being applied heavily. Last slide was basically from the point of view of an operator or internet service provider. But what does this mean for regular businesses? Overall, if we achieve the goals of the broadband plan, there'll be access to cheaper internet for all businesses. So it will aid remote work in the urban areas and decentralize the need for everyone's HQ to be in a specific geographic location. So you don't have to be in Lagos, you don't have to be in Port Harcourt, you don't have to be in Abuja. You can have your HQ anywhere. I'll give you an example. For me, I would love our customer service center to not be in Lagos, to be somewhere where labor is a little cheaper. And then for once there's availability of broadband, then new use cases arise. For example, you can automate a lot more stuff with if you're in if you're one of FMCG, where you can leverage Internet of Things to automate your industries, the brewing industry. But now, if you look at the rates at which broadband data is to actually have IoT, because there's a lot of little parts sending data back to you, it's really expensive. Then on the healthcare side, to drive adoption of telemedicine for hospitals and healthcare startups. And then on the financial inclusion side for fintech startups and financial institutions, you have more functionality because you can move past using just USSD, the limited functionality of USSD. You can then create more apps because you now have data being cheap, broadband data being available to underserved locations. And then edtech startups can push e-learning initiative because now there's more coverage. You're trying to get to 90%. So there's a lot more learnings that can happen using e-learning. Then for local content, all of our content can be in local languages. The creative industry can make their content available now that they have platform. This is even much better than trying to even think of building movie theaters across the nation, right? And then e-commerce, anyone can start an e-shop. So every state, you can pretty much localize the things you can use to you can sell from those locations. Then there's also increased security when you have broadband internet, because then you can actually do better surveillance. CCTV cameras, incident notification can work a lot more in the rural areas if there's a problem. So overall, you get this whole increased security from availability of broadband internet. So talking about government policies, one I wanted to cite an example of how government policy helped us itself, because this Nigerian National Broadband Policy over the next 5 years, if everything is implemented, you can have a situation where significant growth in the economy. I'll give an example of ourselves. We were second runner-up of the USPF Hackathon, which was basically a partnership between the USPF, the NCC's USPF, and the Ministry of Communications Technology Idea Hub. We presented a project, the social Wi-Fi project. We utilized the funds to launch in Lagos mainland. And now today we're in 2 countries and providing internet across a number of states in Nigeria. And we're currently serving 100,000 gigabytes per day. So it shows you that this policy is as simple as it may, well, not simple, but as it may seem like there's a lot to do or there's not much progress being made. But there are real examples of where those policies have helped out. TZT is one of those examples. Okay, thank you everyone. And you can read more about it on the NCC's website. I'll take questions now.